I'll talk about JournalingSuggestions, which is a new framework on Apple platforms. Anyone knows what is it? Or like, did you hear about it? Okay, I see some heads, but cool, because I'll introduce you to that. So basically on the keynote, on the DubDub, Apple said there will be a journal app, and the journal app will allow you to write about your life so your life is better. And to make it easier for you, they will give you different suggestions of what you did, where were you, what did you listen to, and what was your dog doing. So basically, it's just easier to start journaling when you have something to start with. So the idea is, since the system knows everything about you, but it's of course private, they will prompt it to you, and then you can use it in the app to make it easier for the user to write. So they made their own app, but they also allow developers to use that API. So they released it under name of Journaling Suggestion, and this is a new framework from iOS 17.2 beta, and we'll take a closer look what's inside. So basically the first component that comes with it is the Journaling Suggestion picker, and we can define a SwiftUI view which will serve as a button. So after tapping, the picker will show up, and basically if it's the first time on the device that user opens the picker, there will be like some guidance, what is it about, but next time it will just show the picker immediately. And there is also on completion, so we can do something with the suggestion that user picks. So yeah, like we can do whatever we want in here and just handle it somehow. And with this code, we'll get something like that. Awesome. And if I tap, the picker will show. So then we go to more important stuff, which is models that they offer. So there is a journaling suggestion, which is like the entry that you will get once the user select different things. And in this entry, there will be a title. So the title is the thing that the user will name the whole entry, and the date, which is like the whole span of events, because there can be like photos from a week. So it will give you information about the interval of that. And there will be also items, which are like the most important, because there can be photos, there can be workouts, there can be live photos, like locations, music, podcasts, like a lot of stuff. And then you have a method to get some content from the suggestion, because you don't know explicitly what is it. You need to ask the system or like the suggestion for those exact things. So you kind of need to guess, and we'll come to this later. So this is the code that they show on the developer.com, and I hope you can see at the bottom basically what happens, or maybe I can use the laser. They ask for the content. It's not visible here maybe perfectly, but it's journaling suggestion photo. So basically what you need to do is you need to guess what the user will pick, because the user might pick like only music, and if you will take only photos and they took music, you will present nothing in here. And what is more important, the entries are global. So if you consume them in your app, no other app will have a chance to take them. So in this example, if I open the picker and, for example, just picked the podcast, nothing will happen, the podcast will disappear, and perfect. So let's go on. If we'll just try to have some suggestions, we might not get any, because actually recently it started to kind of work better, but at first when I tried, and my friends as well, it kind of sucked, and it was like that for the whole time. But maybe we just need to wait. So we wait a few days, then we wait a week, then we wait 2 weeks, and then yes, there is a notification that something came. But remember, once you use the suggestion, it disappears, so then you have nothing again. So you can't work with it. So perfect. But well, there is this thing called simulator, and for example, if we use like photos on the simulator, Apple gives us some prepared photos, so we don't need to try to somehow inject the photos to the simulator and stuff. but no worries, the framework won't run on the simulator, so you can't even compile it. So yeah, the requirements to even work with it. You need to have the latest Xcode beta, you need to have device with the latest iOS, and probably some luck. So, okay, let's just try to work with it. First things, entitlements. We need to add the entitlement, which will basically tell Apple that we want to use it, and that's it. We cannot like specify which type of suggestions we might want to consume. User can choose in settings to our app that this app is only allowed to consume, for example, photos suggestion, but we don't know that. So basically, it's for us, it's nothing. And yeah, that was easy. But then we need to start to work with it. So if we work in a team, we probably need to check those imports, because if we'll try to import it and the library is not available, then we can't compile. So our teammates will be kind of confused. And then we will start to end up with stuff like that, which won't be the best for our users. So yeah, this is problematic, but we can kind of add this and this will work, this will compile. But still it won't work on the simulator, so what can we do about it? So first, we can just like give the task to someone else, leave the job, but yeah. But probably what I would suggest is to write some automation around it to make our life a little bit easier. And my concept for it is to get all those content types that the framework offers and make my custom type, which will like serve as an abstraction that I can work with while I develop the feature. So an example of this can be, if there is a contact from the journaling suggestion, I'll just make my suggested contact, which will have exactly same properties. It will have member-wise init, because the thing that I didn't mention but is important, you cannot construct those models from the framework. So they do not offer public inits. You can only get the entities that they will provide, but you cannot create them your own. So I will first make the member-wise init, and then with framework type. Yep. So I can just pass the framework type to construct it easily. So what can I do to make my life easier? I'll use the sorcery. So this is the tool. Who knows the sorcery? Oh, perfect. So yeah, this is like a meta programming tool which will allow me to just iterate much faster and generate code based on my own code base. So I don't need to copy paste around and extend a lot of things, but rather write like a meta language and then have a lot of code generated for me. So we are programmers, we make our life easier, not copy paste for the whole week. So just to give you a very basic understanding of how it might work, in this example I will go through all of the types where the types are implementing the protocol that's defined in the framework, and like this is example output that the sorcery will generate. So yeah, like this is nothing, but it's just giving you an overview where are we going to. And of course you attach the sorcery to your project and then it generates you the code, so later you have like finalized version of everything you need. Let's go a step further to give you an overview. So for example, we can iterate over all stored properties and just reuse all of those properties that were given by the type and rename it. So from journaling suggestion, I will just use suggested, and here I have the suggested contact with the name and photo, and this goes for all the types from the framework. Of course, there are more ifs to that, but later I'll just show you a link to my repo in which I took care of all the cases, so it's easier for you, but I guess it serves as a great example. And then we can, for example, make those convenience inits, which I talked about. So in here you can see there is both the check for the import and the availability check. So my colleagues can run the app and like without first attached device, because again, without this, I cannot run it on a simulator, and without this I cannot run it on a device lower than iOS 17.2, so I'm trying to be nice and I make it optional, and writing this like for, I don't know, 20 structs will be very cumbersome, so with this automation I get it for all the types, so it's just very easier. And of course I don't want to like take your whole time from the evening, so there are more things that we should take care of, and this will be this member-wise init that I mentioned before. There will be types like inside the types, so there can be inside the workout, there are workout details, so I also need to have a dedicated handling of this type, typecasting, some nicer API, and maybe helpers to just make my life easier. So for example, I previously mentioned that I need to check what is inside suggestion, so I'll generate myself a type which will later give me a nicer way of taking care of those assets. So instead of each time typecasting, I'll just typecast it one to an abstraction enum suggested asset with all the possible models, and then it will be just easier for me to work with it. And then I'll also be sure that I never miss any of those types, because if we'll go back to this casting done by Apple, of course we can do it for every time, but later if they add new, we can have problems, or in other places, for example, in a service which we save those data, we can forget to handle one case. With the enum, we'll always like compile time save that we handle all of those cases. And if we'll go further, we will need a method which will help us convert. So we'll get the journaling suggestion asset and the item content, and then we will verify if this is the specific type that we want to convert into. And if it's this type, we will just try to take it from the suggestion and then map it to our own type. So we will end up with all items in this enum form. So we do not have just type erased generics, but rather concrete types. So like, is it all, or maybe we need to do some more things? And actually we need, because as I mentioned, Sorcery operates on our own code. So if I'll just do what I showed before, it will has no access to the journaling suggestion framework. So what I can do, for example, is to point Sorcery in its config to the platform, and it goes later up to the journaling suggestions framework, and it can read its Swift module declaration, and based on that it can generate the code. So of course this is not perfect, because in here I'm pointing to a specific version, but you can automate it or like read it from Xcode select and stuff like that, so you can of course improve that, but this is some starting point. And yeah, just to give an overview of the file for you, these are sources, so the stuff that Sorcery is reading from, and there are the templates, so the place in which we declare how the generated code will look like, and the output, which is the place into which Sorcery will generate the code. So one last thing, there is some issue related to the thing that all those models are inside this journaling suggestion module, and basically even if we verify that the models should conform to the specific protocol, Sorcery will be unable to read that. And to mitigate this problem, we'll just make our custom protocol, which will be a marker, and then we will extend all those models to the marker itself. So then Sorcery is able to go through them and generate the code. And once we do that, we're basically good to go. And yeah, as you can see, if this will go, okay, I can both execute the app on the simulator and like create my custom mocks on the suggested assets. So if I like tap the open button and get suggestion, this is all mocked, so I can work with it and it's safe. And of course I can also switch to my device and now work with the real framework and convert to those custom models that I defined earlier. Yes, it's not the fastest thing. And it's 13 Pro. So yeah, it's loading, hooray, it worked. Yep, and in here you can see the title that I mentioned, which is the title of the suggestion, and here are the items. So as you can see, perfect. As you can see, or as you could see, but now you cannot, user can select different things from the suggestion. They don't need to select everything, and we don't know what they will pick. Let me just check. Yeah, and because we don't know, we need to cast it to be sure that. Yeah, I'll just wait for a second to prevent the echo. Yep, so I think we're back on track. So basically that's all. The repository is here. If somebody wants to see it for yourself, because I omitted a lot of different if-else's related to the framework. I just want you to have a basic overview of the problem, which is that the framework is not ready for easy development, and the main point of it is not journaling suggestion itself, but rather how can you ease out your work when something is not ready. Because if I would only rely on the stuff provided by Apple, I can just write and wish it will work, but I want to be sure it works, and I want to have a quick iteration cycle. So if it's not working somewhere in my service layer where I save the data from Apple, I want to see it quickly and fix it as soon as possible. So maybe this is also an important thing to add, that those entities that we get from them, they always give us a URL to a temporary available asset, which is, for example, photo of an album or a photo of a podcast or a photo that a user took, and then it's up to us to save it to some our local storage. So the URL will disappear after some time. So when we get this suggestion, we need to save everything if we want to later allow user to come back to it, because they just don't store it. So yeah, I will just skip through it. And if you want to use Sorcery Pro, because Sorcery is a free tool and it's open source, but there's also a nice app. We got a nice promo code for 20% discount, Mobile Warsaw. So of course you can use it freely, but with this app it's just much easier, because you can immediately see the generated code on the site. So if you would like to play around with it, I recommend it. Yeah, and basically that's all. Thank you very much. And if you have questions, now it's the time.
Because there are no other questions, I'm just wondering for what usage can be useful to have this kind of insights for the user, apart from sharing what your life was, what your dog was doing and so forth.
So basically this is the whole idea of journaling, that you write about your life, and it's usually hard to start because you don't know what to write about, and with those suggestions you have all the details from your recent days. So you have locations, the music you listen to, so it's just easier. Or for example, you don't need to manually add those things, because I myself work for a Stoic, which is a journal app, and people basically, or at least when I write my journal, because everybody does it differently, I will, for example, write the place I was in, and with those suggestions I can, for example, select, and there will be a nice artwork from the maps, so it just looks, a little bit better visually.
So it's just some kind of inspiration for the user.
Kinda, you can think about it this way, yeah. It's just those little details.
Was in some kind of restaurant, later you will have a proposition that he might want to share something about it.
Sorry, I didn't hear you.
I said if he was in some kind of restaurant, a week ago, he will get some kind of suggestion that he might want to share.
Yeah, maybe, because this is a complete black box, so the system will decide whatever it wants to share with you, so it can be totally random, it can not work, or it can give you some nice things. From my perspective, it's getting better and better, and it's making a nice combination of different locations, photos, recordings and stuff like that, but of course you never know, so yeah. Okay.
Yeah, my question is actually pretty similar. As you already work around this framework, experience some issues with it, I wonder maybe you have some ideas about possible use cases besides, like, if you're developing a journaling app and you get this suggestion from Apple, do you think that it could be useful in other cases, like in other apps?
Basically, it probably will be mostly related to writing stuff. So maybe also notes can have those features if you would like to. But you know, it's journaling suggestions in the name, so it's really journaling focused. But I guess you can find some use cases for that.
Tried really hard, maybe some kind of for people that use social media more, maybe for inspiration.
True.
Post that can post on like Instagram.
Automatic Twitter posting.
Yeah, yeah, it could be that.
So we should expect more journalists around the world right now after this feature.
Maybe if they will add it, we'll see. Yeah, but I like.
I had one use case because that's why I was asking. I'm working for places recommendation app, for example. So if the user visits the places, he might get like a notification that he might want to recommend.
So this is maybe important thing that I didn't mention. It's only that they can select it manually. So it's not like your app can get a notification that the user, that the system generated some suggestions. It's only that after they will open the picker and select different entries, you will get them. So as long as they didn't do that, you have no information. But if they, for example, in your app add an entry about the restaurant and you have it named, for example, yes, you can, I don't know, have a search for other restaurants in area and propose them this stuff. So yeah, it's quite a nice idea.
One more quick question.
Sure.
Does it work the other way around? I mean, for example, if I have a podcast app, if I listen to the music, the user listens to the music or some kind of podcast, can I send this data back to Apple so they know that maybe this is something that can be suggested?
So basically, it's opaque. They tell that, for example, they use information that you insert into HealthKit, for example, but they don't tell you how they do that. So yes, if you write stuff to the system, it will take it into account, but I have no idea how that works under the hood. Or
Can you write podcast info to Health app?
If I remember correctly, it used the frameworks that, for example, provide the background audio playing. So if you have some app that is implemented that kind of feature, it's automatically taken from the Apple. If I understand correctly the documentation. Hopefully it works, of course.
I'm not sure if I understand you.
If you are, for example, have the app that has the background player, yes, Spotify-like, it's automatically...
Yeah, so everything you point to the system, so playing in a central...
Some journal asset, it's like preparing some kind of asset, like music or like editing photos. So this is the base probably how Apple takes these things, but how it works, I didn't find anything else more.
Yeah, they don't write about it, at least now. Probably later they maybe will be better like way of donating things like we do for Spotlight, but for now there is no direct way to do that. Cool.
This is more like suggestions, but basically in iOS, suggestions were from the app to the user, and right now we have a reversed system. I think that it works like that user proposes.
Yeah, it's like system proposes to the user and then the user gives you stuff they selected.
But user must provide his input, so he must do it.
Yeah, of course, you need to do something on your phone to have those suggestions. Yeah, if you will never do anything, it will probably never generate you anything. So yeah, cool. So thank you all for listening, and that's all from me.